It's now my pleasure to introduce Peter Tucker. And Peter is the president of the Canterbury Society of Alumni, which he and Jim Briggs were instrumental in getting started, they and their committee, or more than a year ago. And it's with great pleasure that I present him and turn the meeting over to the Society of Alumni.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, and congratulations to all of the great and amazing athletes, coaches, and teams that have just been inducted. And I think you're going to see a little bit of this kind of theme, and hopefully from the Society of Alumni. So, on behalf of all alumni, I want to welcome you to the second annual Society of Alumni meeting. We kicked off our first Society of Alumni week meeting this time last year at reunion weekend last year. So welcome everyone to the second, and of course to Centennial Weekend. Happy birthday to Canterbury. You're going to notice that the Society of Alumni has a great little acronym called SOA. And I think today it's appropriate because you might be thinking this is the sauna of alumni in here. But I assure you, this is the Society of Alumni. Having said that, how great was it when you all came up today, coming up Aspetuck Hill? How wonderful does this campus look? And that's a congratulations to the faculty, staff, Tom, and everyone here on how great this campus looks and how proud we can all be. So I thought I would share, for those of you who didn't get a chance to get familiar with why we created the Society of Alumni, I thought I would share a little bit with you, a little bit of the background, why and how. And, 2.5 years ago, in anticipation of this wonderful upcoming Centennial Weekend, a group of alumni from a wide range of classes was brought together under the direction and full support of the Board of Trustees, and I have to say the inspirational leadership of Jim Briggs. Class of 1956, Jim, thank you for helping. And the group was brought together to work to explore creating an organization run by the alumni and for the alumni. And you might kind of say, well, why? And really, up until the formation of the Society of Alumni, all alums were part of Canterbury Alumni. But our connection to the school was solely through the institutions in the school, the Office of Advancement, formerly called the Alumni Relations Office, and that kind of thing. So the exploratory group of alums worked for over a year, and last year at reunion weekend, we officially launched the Society of Alumni, this umbrella organization run by and for the alumni. We drafted, thanks to the help of many people on the Society of Alumni Executive Committee and others, we drafted a constitution and bylaws. It was published in the Pallium. It's on the website, and it was ratified by the board. In addition, in a little bit, as Jim Briggs likes to say, in a little bit of a Russian election, we elected, and Vladimir Putin was not here, we elected a committee of 15 officers and began to work towards a series of objectives as to what the Society of Alumni would bring. And we defined, most importantly, what the mission and purpose was for this Society of Alumni. And really, at its heart, it's got two fundamental foundational objectives. And the first is to advance the reputation and interest of Canterbury School. And the second is the promotion of good fellowship amongst all of our alumni. And when we do this, you realize that when you form a strong alumni association, it pays back over a cyclical way. And what I mean by that is it helps perpetuate the school, which synergistically reflects positively on all the alumni and its students, which then returns to perpetuate the school. So, while the Centennial Weekend, this year, Great Reunion and Centennial Weekend kind of caused us temporarily to pause a little bit of the great work that we are doing at the Society of Alumni, I just wanted to kind of let you know what the 5 kind of key priorities are. And the first was to begin to reinvent what alumni weekends were. And I think if you look at with the great work that has been put into this amazing centennial. If you look at the agenda, the idea was to create something more inspiring, more interesting, more educational, and not just gather a group of alumni from a series of classes, but to actually have a way in which to engage with one another. And I hope that you see that this kind of agenda, which we brought the first time, the beginning of it, it's obviously much, much richer this year with the centennial. But last year, we brought a whole new rich dynamic to it, and that's due to the great work of all the committee. So, you know, we established educational seminars. Tomorrow, there'll be networking events. We have a Society of Alumni meeting. Tom gives a great State of the Union speech. We have now established, and we will award tomorrow, the second Distinguished Alumni Award. So we've, you know, congratulations on forming the Athletic Hall of Fame. We've now also birthed the Distinguished Alumni Award in Tom's honor and named after Tom. So obviously, we also took a bit of time this year to help work with the Office of Advancement, and what an amazing job they have done tirelessly on developing Centennial Weekend and having some input to give to the board, including today's speakers, et cetera. The next thing is a class representative system. There used to be a very strong one. There isn't one today. Again, this is all about empowering alumni to be connected to their own association as a vehicle to interact with the school. And of course, now we have an Athletic Hall of Fame, and then the formation of some regional associations that we'll begin to look at. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how one of them has already started, and it happens to be one from outside this country. So, now I need to present our first order of business as part of the Society of Alumni, and we need a call to vote to re-elect those Society of Alumni Executive Committee members whose terms are expiring. Give me 1 second. I want to call to your attention that you can see, I think we're going to put on the screen for you, right? We have a list of all members of the Executive Committee. Those of you who were not here last year, let me just tell you that this entire group was elected by the alumni. It was elected by the representatives that were here. All alumni are members of the Society of Alumni. So we have a staggered group, as you might imagine, as a good set of bylaws and operational procedure. We have a staggered group of representatives on the Executive Committee, and we have 4 members who are coming up. Before I do that, we have a number of the Executive Committee here in the audience. I'd like to recognize everyone who has given tirelessly. Please join me in a round of applause for the entire Executive Committee who has birthed this. So I'm going to ask you all for a simple majority. This is just a show of hands. We need to re-elect for a 3-year term. They were elected for a 1-year term. Their term expires this weekend. And they are William Finn, class of '07, William Mera, the third, class of '97, Patricia Rasmussen, class of '92, and Nali Pastori, who I know is here, and many of them are all here. Can I have a show of hands re-electing them for a 3-year term? Thank you. The court stenographer will record that they have been elected. So once they are elected and we recognize we're actually now kicking off the Society of Alumni. You thought it actually began, but until they were re-elected, the Society of Alumni meeting is officially on its way. So I want to kind of take a moment to acknowledge and thank all the classes, all the participation in this amazing centennial weekend, and everyone. And just some notable highlights. We have alumni, as you might imagine, there's almost 900 people coming back to campus, and they are from coast to coast, from California to Florida, Japan, Canada, Panama, Korea, and more. There's 68 classes represented will be on campus this weekend, more than 850 guests. Last year, we had the honor of bestowing an award on Bob Fullen. Bob, I don't know whether he's here today. He may be here tomorrow. Bob is from the class of 1939. He is the oldest registered attendee. So a big round of applause for Bob. He was awarded the Society of Alumni presented to Bob at our first meeting last year a copy of Bob's last tabard for the class of the society, for the class of 1939, which he is incredibly grateful for, and obviously a great. So we also have some of the youngest members here, which is one of the milestone, the Centennial class of 2015, 17 or 18 years old. We go from 1939 to 17 or 18 years old. And as part of the work of the Society of Alumni of beginning to look at exploring regional associations, I want to recognize that we have our first regional association has been formed, and it is the Korean Alumni Association, and actually a number of members are here, including Andrew Kim, our first president of the Korean Alumni Association. Congratulations. Andrew, please stand up. So we have three other points of the agenda, and we've got which is really two guest speakers. And of course, the Society of Alumni began by asking that at each Society of Alumni meeting, we would get a State of the Union from Tom Sheehy. So it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Tom back up to the platform. But before I do that, I just want to say on behalf of the Society of Alumni, as Canterbury's fifth headmaster serving in his 25th year, he's carried us a quarter of the century to get to this centennial, which is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. And I think, as you are mostly aware, and certainly we're aware, under his great leadership and stewardship, we've transformed a number of things in these 25 years. And, you know, we've strengthened Canterbury's, most importantly, we've strengthened Canterbury's academic offerings. And under Tom's stewardship, we added more AP courses. We began and introduced Mandarin in the language practice. We added more music programs. We've added the introduction of a whole technology program. And Tom has also done this while also being very committed to the classroom and quite the scholar of being able to teach Latin, Greek literature, mythology, algebra, and what a range. So I also want to just say that as you look around the campus, you'll see that part of Tom's 25 years of getting us here has been in a great modernization and updating of the campus through new construction and renovation. And lastly, we are in a better financial position than we were way before Tom. When Tom started, the endowment was $1 million. Today it's $30 million. And that's $1 million a year plus that Tom has put. So with that, I want to bring our fifth headmaster back up to give a little State of the Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for giving my State of the School. I have a few more things to add, and this is always a pleasure to address the alums who show up on Alumni Weekend, because especially the older alums find that some of the statistics that I throw at them are almost inconceivable, especially when they think of what their parents paid for tuition 20, 30, 40 years ago, what it costs, and the size of the school. Well, in September, we opened with 317 students and 87 faculty. Now, faculty include administrators and even some people who teach part-time and fulfill other duties. Students came from 20 states and 15 countries. There were 207 boarders and 110 day students. There were 178 boys and 139 girls. Tuition last year was a mere $51,900 for a boarder. For a day student, it was $40,600. Next year, boarding tuition will be $53,900, and day tuition will be $41,900. And understand, the school is not making money on just charging those tuitions. Financial aid, need-based, for those students could not otherwise afford in the amount of $3,342,000. And that is at the core of what Canterbury is about, to allow and permit students who couldn't otherwise financially support this excellent educational opportunity to have a chance to do so. This past year, our budget was $12,965,000, and next year it preliminary looks to be $13,528,000. We are supported by great alumni, family, and friends in the annual fund to the amount of $1.5 million, and our endowment, which at one point when I arrived was $1 million, is now in excess of $30 million. The Carillon Society, and this is something I would hope everyone who has not already joined it would consider joining it. That is to think about and put Canterbury in your trust and in your planning for the future. In other words, those who have put us in their estate plans. There are over 180 individuals who have done so. The quiet phase of a campaign. Yes, there are very few schools today that are not in some sort of campaign. We're being very quiet about it right now, but not for long, and we have raised in excess of $40 million. Core requirements academically. Academically, our program is still demanding. We expect our students to take 5.5 credits, that half credit being in theology, which is offered as a minor in the lower forms and can be elected as a full course in the upper forms. 3 years of a language are required, and we offer Latin still, Spanish, French, and Mandarin. We have a vast array of honors and AP courses offered across the board. And students don't have to be in an honors program. They may take honors English and take a non-honors math program. They may take and start with regular biology, go into honors chemistry, honors physics, and finish up at the AP level. So we offer between 14 and 20 different AP courses, depending on the desire and the number of students signing up. Recently, we've offered elective courses in organic chemistry, and this year we will offer an elective course in pre-engineering. Mandarin, of course, as I said, was introduced a few years ago. We have students taking Mandarin 1, Mandarin 2, and Honors Mandarin 3. So it's certainly taken off. We offer a variety of elective courses in history, in science, in art, in theology, and in English. And this year, this coming fall, we will have a makerspace classroom for robotics. So the idea of STEM and STEAM is very much in our continual conversations about cutting-edge curriculum. In the arts, we have 5 to 7 AP students a year dealing with a variety of media. And we offer 4 to 5 art openings a year, including a student juried art show. In fact, Mark Vanas featured one of our more recent art shows in the area of photography. So it's across the board. Our chorale is quite vibrant. We have an advanced chorale called Schola Cantorum, and we also offer voice lessons for those individuals who aspire. We have a jazz band and an orchestra, and also provide instrumental lessons to any student who is interested, regardless of what that instrument might be. And we even have an exchange program where every year we have a number of students who for 6 weeks go to San Gaetano in Mallorca, and in turn, those students come and visit us for a 6-week period. People talk about the world getting smaller and the need for global understanding. And this year, we have asked one of our faculty members and former student, Aleka Wood, to step forth and serve as our global education coordinator. And she will be looking into opening up our students more to the outside world and to the international. In technology, we constantly are working to improve and upgrade hardware and programs which include Podium, our school platform, smart boards, iPads, iTexts, and other means of using technology in the classroom to deliver information and actively engage our students. And this year, our Faye Vincent Speaker Series, We had Katie Costner, an internationally known speaker on the use and unfortunately abuse of the media, and our own Greg Coleman of the class of 1972, CEO of BuzzFeed, who talked about the media, data gathering, and the constant evolving of information. College counseling, because that seems to be a question especially many of the older alums like to hear about. This year, 114 of our sixth formers filed 1,074 applications. That's an average of about 9 applications for each student. 20%, or 23 out of 32, accepted into the most competitive colleges. By that, I mean 32 were accepted, 23 qualified. And I'll explain what that means. 18% were accepted into highly competitive colleges. 45 qualified, 20 accepted. And 35%, 23 of our students, but 40 accepted into very competitive. So most of our students are accepted in the top 3 categories of colleges. So from the most competitive to the highly competitive to the very competitive. But you'll also notice that 40 went who achieved at a higher level. And the reason for that is the lesser competitive schools, the very competitive, are offering academic scholarships to attract our brighter students. And with college tuitions now eclipsing $60,000 a year, more and more students are opting for the less expensive options. Certainly, as when I read the college lists, you will see that our brightest and I wouldn't say our best, our brightest students are still going to the very top competitive schools. This year, students have been accepted to BC, several to Cornell, Colgate, Carnegie Mellon, Colby, Georgetown, Washington University in St. Louis, George Washington University, Vassar, Holy Cross, Villanova, Smith College, Hobart William Smith, Haverford, Wellesley, Williams, Amherst, McGill, and Wake Forest. So I think that's a pretty strong list, and I attribute a lot of that to an admission initiative which we began about 5 years ago to up the profile of our entering students, and it is paying dividends for those students and their ability to achieve acceptance at the most competitive level. In leadership, we're taking an active role in helping our students, our top students who aspire to leadership positions, become better leaders. We have introduced such a program that runs throughout the year with outside speakers for our captains, for our proctors, and for our sacristans. And through the generosity of John and Dana Donovan, John of the class of 59, we continue our Montana Leadership Program. Well, 12 selected leaders from the Rising Sixth Form go out and spend 10 days out in the Montana wilderness, learning to do all sorts of things which help them understand the importance and the value of leadership. Athletically, we have 20 different sports. Highlights are boys basketball team, our varsity boys basketball team, for the first time in the history of the school, brought home the Class B New England Championships, defeating Brooks School at Holy Cross in early March. A little story behind that, Mrs. Georgianne Gowan, who is the mother of Don Gowan, whose son was our head coach and passed away 3 years during the school year. And he was the source and the recruiter of 4 of those 5 starters on that team. She was at that game, and you can imagine how much that meant to her. Our boys swim team, our girls swim team, they came in 2nd and 3rd in the New England Class C Championship. Boys and girls crew teams qualified for the New England. And I might say our girls' first boat in one regatta defeated Taft, Berkshire, and Gunnery schools with long-standing programs. Our girls' field hockey and hockey teams qualified for the New England tournaments, and several individual champions in swimming, track, and wrestling this year. So we're proud of our athletes, we're proud of our students. Community service. Community service continues to be a hallmark for what we stand for and how we live our lives. We have a director of community service who works throughout the year to find projects to engage our students in outreach for those who are less able or have fewer skills and abilities, and to help them find happiness, find success. We have local school projects, weekend camps where our students volunteer to go away for the weekend and help with those from inner city. We have the Penguin Plunge, where we raise money for the handicapped in the middle of February by diving into the water. What else? Internationally, we have students for the 22nd year going to Lourdes. We have students who go to Nicaragua during March break, and we have students who now are going to Puerto Rico to do service in those areas. And throughout the year, we have students who pursue individual projects to help either locally and or internationally. Spirituality. This past May 24th, we inducted the next 12 sacristans, 3 of them who serve Mass tonight. We continue to have form retreats for all our forms. We have an Emmaus, which is a volunteer retreat, which our students sign up for, and which is always oversubscribed every year. And campus ministry, where we have periodic gatherings, whether it's a pizza and prayer service, whether it's to do and listen to others talk about their faith experiences. And this year, for instance, we had 2 students who made a profession of faith. We had 20 students who were confirmed by Archbishop Emeritus Cronin. And it's, with pride, I say that tonight, Mass was said by Father Sebastian Leonard, who is just completing his 20th year, which is a record as chaplain for Canterbury. And I might point out, too, in the audience, we have a young man, I still call him a young man, who graduated from Canterbury in 1977 and went into the seminary for a while, and in 1991 he called me up and he said, "Coach, I'm getting out of the seminary, how about a job?" And so Frank Bice was hired to teach theology. After a few years, he thought maybe the business world was for him, and for a hiatus of about 15 years, he was always in touch, but he was elsewhere. Last year, he called me up and said, "Do you need a theology teacher?" And I said, "Yes, we do." And so I want to acknowledge Frank, chairman of the theology department and an ordained deacon. So it's great to have him back. On Friday, May 22nd, 114 of our 6 formers graduated, following a baccalaureate Mass. It was a great day. In fact, I have to say it was the most perfect day we've had for graduation. Since 1999, we have had our graduations outside, and only once in those years have we had to bring it indoors. But Friday the 22nd was the best of possible weather, and Jack Heffernan, class of '58, who was a graduation speaker, claimed responsibility for that. So when you see Jack and you're having a wedding or anything like that, you might give him a call. Among faculty, we have newly initiated a director of residential life to work on programs to ensure that the community, the boarding community, is stronger, but also by including the day population. And this past year, we have brought on a director of marketing and communications. In this world, this competitive world of boarding schools, it becomes more and more competitive. The message has to be unified, it has to be one, it has to be often, it has to be clear, and it has to be compelling. And so we have brought on a director of marketing communications to help ensure that. And last but not least, as Peter said, when you came up the top of the hill, you had to agree it was a spectacular view. And the grounds, I thank the grounds crew, the dorms, everything is outstanding because of their dedication to the school. But I want to point out a special group. And those are our trustees who this year decided to go over and above to help improve, enhance our facilities, indoors as well as outdoors. And we have done that for two special reasons. Number one and foremost, they needed an upgrade. But number two, it's a competitive world out there. And when prospective students come by, they are looking in every nook and cranny. They are looking in the rooms. They are looking in the dorms. They are looking in the classrooms. They are looking at the fields. They are looking at everything. We cannot afford to be second place. And thanks to our trustees, we have upgraded all the common rooms. We have improved Hume Foyer and with lighting and carpeting throughout that building. The old gym has been upgraded and improved. In fact, the old gym has been refurbished and is a very nice space now. The Brody Room has been upgraded. Duffy Terrace has a new terrace. Walkways outside Hume have been improved. The gym entrance has been improved. The student center has been repainted with more and new seating. We have new beds. Remember those metal beds? They're all gone. They've been donated to a local prison, I think. So they've been replaced with wooden beds. Flooring, lighting, and painting in the dorms has been ongoing and will continue to go on throughout the summer months. That's it, except for one comment. And that is, at the end of the day, Canterbury is not about facilities. It's not about victories on the athletic field. It's about helping our students become individuals of character, become active learners, and become, as our mission says, moral leaders in an ethical world. And that's what we strive for every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Very impressive from the great stewardship for 25 years. There would not be a Society of Alumni meeting, especially on this great weekend of Centennial Weekend, if we didn't have two wonderful alumni, both from important milestone years. And so we're going to have two of them as part of the final part of our agenda spend a couple of minutes with us, giving us some thoughts. And we really felt that we'll start with the one from the 25th class, and it's my distinct privilege and honor to introduce John Gaffney, a member of the milestone class of 1990, so he's part of the 25th. And John has his roots deep in Canterbury. His sister Beth is a member of the class of 1991. His brother Steve is class of 1987. And John is engaged, is an engaged volunteer currently serving on the role of secretary of the Society of Alumni. And I just want to tell you that he was instrumental in helping us draft and legalize the Constitution for the Society of Alumni. He is also a former member of the Canterbury faculty, so he's not strange to this campus, having worked in admissions from 1995 to 1998. Today, he is the Assistant General Counsel and Director of the Bank of America in New York City. Previously, he was Vice President and Special Counsel to the Chairman of McAndrews and Forbes, and he was also an associate at Davis Polk and Wardwell. And I just want to say a personal thing, that's where my father spent his entire career for almost 40 years. So kind of a special moment in that. And he was also a law clerk in the U.S. Court of Appeals. John is a graduate of Lafayette College and earned his J.D. at the University of Connecticut Law School. Please welcome John Gaffney, class of 1990.
Thanks, Peter. Tom, I just wanted to first say congratulations, by the way. 25 years of service to the school. Tom's first year was the year after my class graduated. And I can't think of another way to compliment Tom than to say that as I watched the school grow under his leadership, I kept thinking that I would love to be back here as a student. without the puberty, of course. It's a really special occasion, and I'm very pleased to speak to you today. I'm nominally supposed to be a representative of the class of 1990, which is the 25th anniversary class. And I know some of my classmates will be here this weekend, including Doug here, and most of whom are smarter and more thoughtful and certainly better looking than me. So please take what I say as my personal thoughts, and I appreciate your indulgence. I have real fondness for Canterbury. I think it's a special place. But when I was thinking about what to say today about why it's a special place, it was a little difficult for me to put that into words. Canterbury has meant different things to me over the course of the 29 years since I first encountered it in earnest in the spring of 1986. I've come to think of it as a living institution. It grows and it changes in subtle ways that don't have anything to do with the athletics facilities or the dorms or the classrooms. The students, of course, they play a large role in what the school's identity is, but to be honest, when I first came to Canterbury as a 13-year-old in the fall of 1987, I had no idea who I was. I was shockingly immature. I had little to no self-awareness, and I was still very much finding my way. I don't think I'm unique in that regard. So I think although students play some part in defining a school, they're not really the answer to the question, what makes a school special? So what is the answer? In the spring of 1986, my brother Steve had been at Canterbury for 2 years. He was finishing his 5th form year. We had moved to Brookfield from New Rochelle, and I had frankly never encountered anything quite like Canterbury. All of my older siblings had gone to New Rochelle High School, and I just expected that I would go there as well. But I came to campus for a tour and an interview, and I met with Fran Foley, who was then the director of admissions, and walked around campus with him for about a half an hour and didn't even realize that he was interviewing me at the same time, so credit to him for that. I remember laughing a lot, because that's what you did when you talked to Fran. But I don't remember much more other than the fact that he made me feel more than just welcome and comfortable. In that 35 or 45 minutes that we spent together, he made me, a shy 12-year-old, feel like I belonged here. And I think that's a real gift. In the fall, after I enrolled at Canterbury, one of the first days that we were here, we were going through registration, and I don't know if any of you remember this, when you had to sign up for the sports that you were going to be participating in for each of the 3 seasons in the upcoming year. And my brother Steve was on his way to being voted the best athlete in the school in his senior year. And I just assumed I would follow in his footsteps, so I signed up for basketball for the winter. Basketball, no. Some of you knew me then. I was maybe 5 feet tall and 95 pounds soaking wet. So that was not going to happen. Bill Dunham was the wrestling coach at the time. He saw me. He said, no, you need to wrestle. We need somebody at your weight class. And I frankly don't know what he said to me that made me agree, but I'm glad I did. I mean, not only did I get introduced to a sport where I got my butt handed to me pretty much on a daily basis, but it was the first occasion where a Canterbury faculty member challenged me to do something different, to go my own way, and to set my own path. And that meant a lot to me. Something similar happened a year later. Again, I tried to follow my brother's footsteps on the soccer field, but that was going to fail miserably. And Walter Burke kindly stepped in and said, I think you'd be more happy on the cross-country team. And he was right. At the end of my fifth form year, the season in my fifth form year, I was elected one of 3 captains for the cross-country team, which was great. I was very excited about that. Unfortunately, when I came back in our sixth form year, there were a couple of postgraduates and sixth formers who joined the team who were all faster than me. And they were faster than another person who was also elected captain. So we were put in a bit of an awkward position where we were captain of the varsity, but we were running on the JV team. And Walter Burke, to his credit, was great. He basically said to my classmate Dan Bertram and I, you were not elected as captains because of your speed on the days of the meets. You guys are captains of the whole team. I don't care which group you run with, you're still captains. And it meant a lot to me that he showed me that support, and he championed the qualities that he felt that I showed that had nothing to do with my speed on the race course. In the classroom, Jules Vio, Jim Shea, Walter Burke, Kevin Derringer, and Brian Kiefer challenged me to think differently about Latin and history and calculus and literature and economics. Mark Vanasse introduced me to film and journalism. And Guy Simonelli, who was my dorm parent when I became a boarding student my last 2 years, was, to my mind, the embodiment of kindness, patience, and empathy. By the time I left Canterbury in 1990, I had come to love the place. The faculty had challenged me to find my own path, and they made me feel comfortable enough to accept that challenge, even if there were going to be some failures along the way, and of course, there were. And it was because of that that I decided that I wanted to come back. I wanted to try to do the same thing for other students that the faculty did for me. When I did, I quickly became friends with other new faculty members, and some of them remain my best friends to this day. I also developed friendships with the faculty members who I only knew as teachers. Mark, Guy, and Brian, just three of them. I also became close friends with Rod Clark, who was the headmaster when I graduated in 1990. And by the time of my graduation in 1990, at least to my mind, Rod was an institution. So I just found it hilarious that 5 years later, I was sitting at his table sharing some beers and playing some poker with some other faculty members and laughing until we cried. But those nights were really a revelation to me, because the conversations that we were having around that table made it so clear that everybody who was there cared immensely about their job. They were devoted to the students for which they were responsible. The years I worked at Canterbury in the admissions office, living in the dorms, and coaching sports were 3 of the most important and rewarding years of my life. And although I was still incredibly young at the time I first started here when I was about 23 years old, I knew from experience how important a first interview could be for a prospective student. How a gentle nudge from a coach or a teacher could influence a young person's decisions and help them discover a new path for themselves. And how important it was for me to show a student the value that he or she added to the school. Tom mentioned this, but the last sentence of Canterbury's mission statement reads, "The school sees all students as individuals, encourages them as necessary, challenges them as appropriate, and inspires them to become moral leaders in a complex secular world." It's a wonderful sentiment, but mission statements are not self-executing. You need people to accept the mission and live it. The leaders of the school, the board, the headmaster, set the vision, but it's the faculty who are tasked with interacting on a daily, an hourly, and a minute-by-minute basis with the students and bringing that mission statement to fruition. And without these people, the mission statement are just words on a page, and the school is just a collection of buildings on a hill. So on behalf of the students who came before us and after us and will come in the future, I want to say thank you to the faculty members who, to my mind, make Canterbury something truly extraordinary. Quite simply, it changed my life, and I really believe that it's going to continue to change the lives of Canterbury students for generations. Thank you.
That's great. It's, I think, the personal reflections of everyone who's experienced Canterbury and what it means to them. And with that, I'd like to call up our closing speaker, bringing in the class of 1965, a 50th year reunion representative of his class. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Reed McNamara. Reed has been front and center this year in helping organize and motivate classmates to come back to campus, which we're immensely pleased with for this historic celebration. Reed is the managing director of the Career of Management Center and Corporate Affairs at Vanderbilt's Owen Graduate School of Management. He arrived at Owen after a successful 35-year career in the private sector. Reed held a number of executive positions at Fortune 500 companies, including Gillette, Pillsbury, Revlon, Bausch & Lomb. He also founded and was partner of CXO Management Consultants. He holds a Bachelor of Arts from Colgate, a Master's from Vanderbilt in Latin American Studies, and an MBA from Wharton. He has served as director of both publicly owned companies and nonprofits, including a term as a director of the Colgate Alumni Corporation. Please welcome Reed McNamara.
It's fun to be batting last like I batted for Jim. Where's Jim Briggs? Didn't I bat last for you, Jim? There you are. Well deserved. Thanks very much, Peter. When Peter asked me to take 5 or 6 minutes and reflect on my time here, I accepted with the condition that I speak on behalf of all my classmates of the great class of 1965. So what I'm going to share with you for a few minutes is the collective thinking of all of us. And there are 40 of us left, more than half of whom are here this weekend, which I think is a pretty good record. I marvel at the extraordinary achievements of this group, and I urge you, if you have time in the next 36 hours, to seek out the members of the class of 65. There's a lot of wisdom in this group. The classmates here to celebrate with us from 1965 include a professional musician, an award-winning journalist, a much decorated and globally recognized medical writer, a number of educators, several entrepreneurs who have created large successful enterprises from a blank sheet of paper, the managing partner of an international law firm, an architect, an environmental lawyer, and a number of gentlemen who have taken the reins of family businesses and made them grow. Husbands, fathers, and most of us grandfathers, we all carry the indelible mark of Canterbury. We arrived here in 1961 and 62, products of the baby boom and the greatest generation. We left in 1965, catapulted out of a highly regimented, traditional, some would say monastic existence into a tumultuous world in 1965. While at Canterbury, we lived through the assassination of a president, the overthrow of the Diem regime, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. Even in our cocoon here on the Hill, in a very cloistered environment, it was clear that the hurricane winds of geopolitical change and social change were blowing with gale force as we left. We left and ran headlong into a conflicted world undergoing tectonic shifts in the way we viewed ourselves and others. For most of us, it was a very confusing time. 90 days after leaving this comfortable womb of predictable regimen and consistent expectations, we found ourselves at the beginning of arguably the most tumultuous period of social change in U.S. history. Many would hold that the single-sex boarding school model of the early 60s would ill prepare us for the second half of the decade and for the profound changes which it brought. Canterbury certainly did not help us make the small decisions in life. It told us exactly what to wear on what occasions. We were told exactly what to eat and when to eat it. We were told when it was time to get a haircut in the windowless basement interrogation room below the infirmary. We were not given a choice on when or where to study, nor could we make a decision on when to go to bed. The small decisions of daily life were taken by the institution to which our parents had entrusted us. Canterbury did, however, prepare us well for the big, truly important decisions of our lives, the ones involving right and wrong, good and evil, service versus self-indulgence, the collective achievement of a team versus individual greatness, and ethical behavior versus what in today's world of moral relativism is called, quote, pushing the envelope. My classmates and I agree that the critical thinking skills that we were taught here at Canterbury were the single most important tool that enabled us to make the right decisions to come out of the 60s intact, whole, changed to be sure, but ready to lead productive lives. Giants like Hebert, Shea, Moore, Martiska, Vio, Clark, Dalton, Vanasse, and Koenig all demanded that we approach our work with the intellectual rigor and analytical thoroughness necessary to meet life's challenges with both reason and compassion. For giving us that tool, we're eternally grateful to that group of remarkable men. The 5 values that Canterbury cites as guiding principles today were indeed present here when we were here. Of course, there were no glossy brochures or websites to communicate them, but honesty, respect, compassion, spirituality, and self-reliance were all critical elements of our education here. I'd like to reflect briefly on just 2 of those values, self-reliance and respect. My classmates and I learned the value of self-reliance despite the fact that it was imposed upon us. Expectations were crystal clear, and the price of failure in academics or personal behavior was very high. There were few chances at redemption. During our time here, there were no safety nets, nor were there any advocacy groups. We alone were accountable for our own actions. And yet these 30 men who demanded so much of us, when they saw us struggling, quietly took us aside and encouraged us to look deep inside for another burst of effort. That same John Hebert, who plunked me with an eraser after mangling the subjunctive tense of a verb, found me alone that evening, and I don't know how he found me on campus, and urged me to look inside and find something that would take me to another level of achievement. Self-reliance complemented by quiet, well-timed, unexpected words of encouragement was at the heart of what we learned here. Respect is another core value which we in the class of 1965 view as central to our Canterbury education. Respect for differences was a bit tricky, as the differences between us then were very subtle. We were, after all, about as homogeneous as you could be, all male, all Catholic, and until our classmate Lawrence Aaron appeared in 1964, all white. This was not a crucible of diversity. Nevertheless, despite the sameness of the student body and faculty, respect for personal differences was demanded at Canterbury during our stay here. Respect as a core value was not confined to the student body alone. One of my classmates recently mentioned respect for tradition, but openness to change as a core value of our education. One need look no further than the June 1965 issue of the Tabard to see how the door to change opened just a crack as we were leaving Canterbury. The Tabard cites a special award created to honor 4 members of the class of 1965 who called themselves the King Bees, the first rock and roll group allowed to form at Canterbury. The award, underscoring the value of respect, was for, quote, educating the headmaster and the faculty to an acceptance of new horizons, unquote. I should mention at this point that a reconstituted version of the King Bees will be playing this evening in the Copley Library. The emergence of the King Bees was not without some disrespect outside the confines of the Hill, however, as the headmistress of Dobbs Ferry, horrified by the work of the devil, unplugged their amplifiers and shut down the King Bees at their first away game. However, 2 weeks later at the School of the Holy Child in Rye, New York, my faith in the church was buttressed by the sight of nuns clapping their hands and singing along to the rock and roll tunes of the King Bees. The class of 1965 is proud to be celebrating our 50th reunion in the larger context of Canterbury's centennial. What Nelson Hume and Henry Havemeyer envisioned a century ago has blossomed into a successful and highly respected educational institution whose values have stood the test of time. The experiment that was Canterbury has had its hypothesis validated. We're delighted to be here with you this weekend to celebrate the success. As a final thought, if you look closely at the Centennial Path at the old schoolhouse, you'll see a brick dedicated by a member of the class of 1965, which simply reads, "Thank God for Canterbury." Thank you and have a wonderful celebration.
Wow, thank you so much. I think a huge thank you to Reed and to John for sharing their reflections. And I think, part of us all being a member of the Society of Alumni, it's their reflections that bring about all of our own reflections and make you feel part of this great continuum that is Canterbury. So with that, I know that, is anybody a little chilly? Should we warm it up a little bit? So I want to kind of conclude this meeting, but before I do that, can I just highlight 2 or 3 things that I think are worth kind of sharing? There's some great things in this agenda coming up over the next 2.5 days that we're all going to be together. And, obviously tonight we have some amazing dinners. I don't want anybody to depart because we have a special way in which you're going to get to your dinner, so stay with me. And tomorrow we begin with this new part that we began at last year's reunion as part of the new invention or reinvention of reunion, which is the parade of all classes, and we have 68 of them. So it's 10 o'clock, followed by the convocation, which we will have both the Distinguished Alumni Award being presented. Tom Sheehy will be giving a vision for the future. So tonight he shared with you a reflection of the State of the Union. Tomorrow it's about the future, and of course, Bob Steers, our chairman of the board, will also give his vision. So it should be quite a great meeting. 2 other quick highlights. Because it's Centennial Weekend and being kind of custodians of history, the Office of Advancement has created a story booth capability, and I don't know if Kathy is here who can identify where it is on campus. Kathy, where is that story booth? It's in the admission. All right, so let me just highlight this. This is an opportunity for you to get a little bit on film and on microphone to share your thoughts, reflections, to kind of add to Reed and John and the reflections that all of us have. We really want to capture, there's 800 of us here. If you can take 5 or 10 minutes to stop by the story booth, give us 2 or 3 thoughts that's kind of interesting on what Canterbury has meant to you. I think it'll be great, and clearly we'll build that as part of the Society of Alumni to share it back with you, because the power of all of these reflections is, again, what makes us feel part of this continuum. So then, in keeping with expanding the richness of reunion weekends, tomorrow there'll be affinity kind of networking lunches, which will take place in Piggott Arena and Steele Hall. We've got, in the afternoon, the Centennial Academies. There's 5 different academies you'll see on there. I encourage you, if you didn't sign up, consider one. There'll be amazing speakers, great alumni who have brought many distinctions to themselves and to the Canterbury Communion. And of course, it finishes tomorrow night with the Party of the Century. Obviously, we'll all be looking forward to socializing there. And then Sunday, we have the Centennial Mass, the dedication of the new Centennial Path at the old schoolhouse that Reed mentioned, which is really neat, as well as the Centennial Brunch. So with that, it's not a typical reunion year. It is the celebration of the centennial. I want to thank everyone for being part of this Society of Alumni meeting. I'm going to close it. I do want to say a personal reflection for the memory of all Canterbury alumni who are not here, who have passed away in every class. And in particular, in my own class, which I am not part of the milestone class, part of 78. A number of our alumni have passed, and just a kind of moment for them, including Bill Stefanak, and a very special memory for Billy Purley, a very close classmate. Okay. We're going to kind of bring back a little Canterbury tradition in terms of how we're going to dismiss you out of here. So we're going to dismiss by forms. No, I'm joking.